Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The topic we'll be looking into this morning is reproduction. When we talk about reproduction is simply defined as the process by which a mature organism produces its own kind for the continuity of its race or generation. Reproduction is one of the characteristics of living organism. Now, an advantage of reproduction is that it ensures the continuity of the race of an organism, and prevents them from being wiped out of existence. Now, we have talked about reproduction as process by which mature organism produces its same kind, which helps it to continue its race or generation. Now, the types of reproduction are two. We have asexual and we have sexual. So, today we want to look into what asexual reproduction is. I said there are two types of reproduction, asexual and sexual. So, the first one is asexual. That is what we'll be looking into. When we talk about asexual reproduction, it involves just one parent dividing to produce two or more offspring of its kind, and those offspring has hereditary traits that are identical to those of the parents. The characteristics, the traits possessed by the parents are also in the offsprings. So, the hereditary traits that are identical, that are the same to those of the parent, will also be possessed by the offspring. So, asexual reproduction involves just one parent, which divides to produce the offspring. Now, an advantage of asexual reproduction is that it ensures rapid increase in number. Asexual reproduction makes sure that there is a rapid, quick increase in the number of organisms that will be produced. But this asexual reproduction is not present in vertebrates, that is, animals with backbone. And it's also absent in higher invertebrates. So, now, we have looked into asexual reproduction as a type of reproduction. So, asexual reproduction also has types. They are fission, multiple fission, and binary fission. So, we want to look into fission as a type of asexual reproduction. When we talk about fission, it is just a form of asexual reproduction in which the cell simply divides. So, this kind of division or asexual reproduction is commonly found in bacteria, in protozoa, and in algae. So, during fission, the single parent divides into more parts or less equal parts, and each part grows to become an individual that has similar characteristics to its parents. So, when we talk about fission, we have binary fission, we have multiple fission. So, we have binary fission. And if you remember, I said we are looking into amoeba as an example of organism that carries out asexual reproduction using fission. So, under fission, it carries out binary fission. It can carry out binary fission as well as multiple fission. So, when we talk about binary fission, it's just the process by which organism divides into two daughter cells, or the process by which organism or cells divides into two daughter cells. Just one parent will divide into two. An example of organism that carries out binary fission are amoeba, trypanosoma, euglena, and bacteria. Those are examples of organisms that can carry out binary fission. The cells divide to give two daughter cells or two other organisms. Now, if you go back to page 1, you will see the diagram of an adult amoeba, undergoing binary fission. So, if you look at it, you see that adult amoeba now become rounded in shape. As we all know, amoeba does not have a definite shape. So it becomes rounded and its nucleus now divide into two cytoplasm. The cytoplasm will now separate. If you look at the diagram, you will see the cytoplasm being joined together, and the separation that is taking place is on the right and the left hand side. The cytoplasm are separated to form two different amoebas. Now, multiple fission in amoeba. The amoeba itself, the adult amoeba, becomes rounded in shape as in the first stage in binary fission. It becomes rounded in shape, and when there is the shape changes to a round or spherical shape, it forms a cyst. When we talk about cyst, what is a cyst? A cyst is just an enclosure that is harboring, that is keeping the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm and the nucleus is embedded in the cyst. So thereby, multiple fission will now continue to occur in the cyst. And in the cyst, the cytoplasm and the nucleus now divide several times inside the cyst that is enclosing the cytoplasm and the nucleus. At later stage, if you go to page 2, you will see that the cyst now bursts, that is breaks, and new amoebas will now be released. Then they continue their growth into adult amoeba. That is just the reproduction in amoeba through binary and through multiple fission. So, examples of organisms that undergo multiple fission are protozoa. An example of protozoa is Plasmodium, that is the parasite carried by Anopheles mosquito, which transmits malaria parasites. So that's Plasmodium and Chlamydomonas. Now, another example or type of asexual reproduction is budding. Same on the same page, which is page 2. If you look closely, you will see budding. So when we talk about budding as a type of asexual reproduction, it is simply the unequal division of an organism. The organism divides into an unequal part, unlike in the fission, in which the division, the process is what? Equal. But in budding, this is an unequal division of an organism. It is a form of asexual reproduction in which one or more offspring now grows out from the surface of the parent. Then the outgrowth now mature and it will fall off from the parent. So this type of asexual reproduction is commonly found in plants, e.g. in fungi. An example of fungi is yeast, and in lower invertebrate animals such as hydra and sponges. So if you go to page 3, you will see the diagram of hydra undergoing asexual reproduction by budding. So if you look closely on the same parent organism, you will see that it possesses the testis, which is the male reproductive organ, and it consists of the ovary, which is the female reproductive organ. Now, if you look closely at the diagram, you will see the testis, the ovary, and the young bud from the word budding. So, this young bud has what? Grown, has been produced. Then, we have a more mature bud at the other right-hand side that is about to separate from the parent organism. It will fall off and continue its growth to become an independent organism. So that is how budding in hydra occurs. So hydra is an example of organism that can undergo budding as a type of asexual reproduction. So we have other examples of organisms such as fungi. An example of fungi is yeast. Then we have lower invertebrate animal, which I have earlier mentioned to be hydra and sponges. Now, the next type of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. So what is fragmentation? This is a form of asexual reproduction in which an organism breaks into two or more parts, and each part is capable of becoming a complete organism. An example is Spirogyra, commonly found in a moist environment such as in gutter, on wet surfaces, and so on. Anywhere that is always moist, that is wet, you will see Spirogyra. If you walk around your area, you will see in the gutters green plants. That is what we know as Spirogyra. So we have other types of asexual reproduction which we will be looking into closely in the next class. To be sporulation, vegetative reproduction, and root tubers, then parthenogenesis. There are other types of asexual reproduction. So, from what we have discussed so far, we have looked into asexual reproduction, the types of asexual reproduction to be fission, budding, fragmentation, which we have explained. Then we talk about organisms that can undergo fission to be amoeba and so on. Amoeba is capable of undergoing binary and multiple fission, which I have explained. Then budding, hydra, sponges can also undergo budding as a type of asexual reproduction. Then fragmentation. An example of organism that can undergo fragmentation as a type of asexual reproduction is Spirogyra. So, then other types of asexual reproduction are what I have listed. If you look closely on page 3, sporulation, vegetative reproduction, root tubers, and parthenogenesis. Now, on page 4, we have the assessment questions, which serves as assignments. You have to define what reproduction is. You have to explain asexual reproduction. You have to explain binary fission and multiple fission. Then, let me know what budding is. What is budding? And you have to give 2 organisms that can undergo budding. Then, state an advantage of reproduction to living organisms, as I've earlier explained. And this assignment is to be submitted latest on Monday, 4th of January 2021. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.